Take the bus to your graduation. We need the car to pick up Jake's Tesla, Dad announced that morning. Not even looking up from his coffee, I stood there in my cap and gown, watching Mom fuss over my brother's wrinkled shirt while my honors cords hung forgotten on the kitchen chair. 4 years of perfect grades, 3 internships, and a secret that would change everything in exactly 2 hours. They thought they knew which child would make them proud today. They had no idea. The kitchen smelled like burnt toast and disappointment. I watched my father Warren scroll through his phone while my mother Diane straightened Jake's collar for the 10th time. My brother lounged against the counter, 24 years old, and still acting like the world owed him everything on a silver platter. "Did you hear me?" Marcia, Dad's voice cut through my thoughts. "The bus runs every 15 minutes. You'll make it in plenty of time." I stared at the car keys on the counter, the ones to our family sedan. The same sedan that had carried Jake to 3 different college orientations before he dropped out of each one. The same sedan that somehow was never available when I needed rides to my internships at 4 in the morning. "You're really going to make me take public transportation to my college graduation?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. Mom looked up from adjusting Jake's hair. "Sweetie, don't be dramatic. Your brother needs us there for moral support when he picks up his new car. It's a big moment for him." A big moment for Jake, who had accomplished exactly nothing in the past 6 years except mastering the art of convincing our parents that his next scheme would be the one that finally worked out. "Besides," Jake added with that infuriating smirk, "you like taking the bus. Always going on about reducing carbon footprints and all that environmental stuff." That environmental stuff. He meant my thesis project on sustainable technology that had won 3 awards. Not that anyone in this kitchen had bothered to read it. "The Tesla dealership is 45 minutes away," I pointed out. "The ceremony starts at 10. You'll miss it." Dad finally looked up from his phone. "We'll try to make it back, but you know how these dealerships are. Paperwork takes forever." He said it like missing his daughter's college graduation was equivalent to missing a dentist appointment. I thought about the $80,000 they were about to spend on Jake's Tesla. $80,000. When I'd asked for help with my student loans last month, they'd given me a lecture about financial responsibility and learning to stand on my own feet. "Marco from the dealership says they might throw in the premium sound system if we're there early," Jake announced, examining his fingernails. "Can't miss that opportunity." My phone buzzed in my pocket. Professor Hartley's name flashed on the screen. I stepped into the hallway to answer my graduation gown, swishing against the walls covered in Jake's old participation trophies. Not a single photo from my science fairs or academic achievements in sight. "Marcia, I hope I'm not calling too early." Professor Hartley's voice carried an undercurrent of excitement that made my pulse quicken. "No, Professor, I'm just getting ready to leave for the ceremony." Good. Listen, I wanted to give you a heads up before the announcement. Are you somewhere private?" I glanced back at the kitchen where my family continued their Jake worship session. "Yes. Technova Industries closed the deal at 3 this morning. $50 million for your AI diagnostic patent. The papers are signed, the money will transfer Monday. But Marcia, you need to keep this quiet until the ceremony. Marcus Chen himself is flying in for the announcement." The hallway seemed to spin. $50 million. 2 years of sleepless nights in the computer lab, countless failed algorithms, debugging code until my eyes burned. And now this. "Marcia, are you there?" "Yes, Professor, I understand. Thank you for letting me know." "You've earned this, every penny. I'll see you at the ceremony." I ended the call and leaned against the wall, my heart pounding. Through the kitchen doorway, I could hear Mom telling Jake how proud she was that he was finally investing in his future. The irony was suffocating. Walking back into the kitchen, I found them group hugging while Jake pretended to wipe away tears of gratitude. The performance was Oscar-worthy. "I should go," I said, picking up my honors cords from the chair. "Wouldn't want to miss my own graduation." That's the spirit, Mom said absently, not breaking her embrace with Jake. Take some pictures for us. I looked at each of them one last time. My father already calculating how to brag about Jake's Tesla at the country club. My mother convinced that buying her son expensive toys would somehow transform him into the successful man she'd always dreamed of. And Jake, who had perfected the art of failing upward. "Oh, Marcia," Dad called as I reached the door. "Congratulations on the graduation thing. We're proud of you." The graduation thing. 4 years of Dean's List. 3 publications. A patent that would revolutionize healthcare diagnostics. Reduced to the graduation thing. Thanks, Dad. I stepped out into the morning sun, my cap and gown carefully folded over my arm. The bus stop was 3 blocks away. As I walked, I thought about the $50 million that would soon be mine. About how my family had no idea that while they were buying Jake his toy, their overlooked daughter was becoming one of the youngest tech billionaires in history. The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd forced me to take the bus to my graduation while buying my brother a Tesla. In 2 hours, I could buy the entire Tesla dealership, but they'd made their choice about which child mattered. And soon, they'd have to live with it. My phone buzzed again, an unknown number with a local area code. I almost didn't answer, but something made me swipe accept. "Is this Marcia Blackwell?" The voice was elderly, female, warm. "Yes, this is she." "My dear, you don't know me, but I've been following your work. My name is Rosa. I'll be at your graduation today. Would you mind terribly if an old woman sat next to you on the bus? I have a feeling we have much to discuss." Something about her voice made me smile. I'd be honored. "Wonderful. I'll see you at the stop on 3rd Street. Oh, and Marcia, congratulations on the Technova deal. You're going to change the world." Before I could ask how she knew the line went dead, I stared at my phone, then quickened my pace toward the bus stop. This day was already full of surprises, and the ceremony hadn't even started yet. The bus stop on 3rd Street was crowded with morning commuters, but I spotted her immediately. Rosa sat on the bench like she owned it, her silver hair pinned in an elegant bun, wearing a navy suit that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. When she saw me approaching in my cap and gown, her face lit up with a smile that reached her eyes. "Marcia, dear, right on time." She patted the space beside her. "The number 7 should be here in 3 minutes." I sat down carefully, trying not to wrinkle my gown. "How did you know about Technova?" Rosa chuckled, a sound like wind chimes. "Oh, I have my ways. But first let me look at you. Graduating summa cum laude, I heard. Your parents must be beside themselves with pride." The bitter laugh escaped before I could stop it. "They're at a Tesla dealership, buying my brother a car he didn't earn with money they said they didn't have." Rosa's eyes sharpened. She studied me with an intensity that felt like she was reading my entire life story in the curve of my shoulders. "Ah," she said simply, "the invisible daughter syndrome. I know it well." The bus rumbled up to the curb and we climbed aboard. It was standing room only, packed with people heading to work. I gripped the overhead rail while Rosa somehow managed to claim a recently vacated seat with the authority of a queen. "Sit," she commanded, tugging me down beside her. "Graduation gowns weren't designed for standing on moving vehicles." An older man started to protest, but one look from Rosa silenced him. She had that effect, I was learning. "You said you know it well, I prompted as the bus lurched forward. "The invisible daughter thing." Rosa gazed out the window at the passing cityscape. 1958. I graduated from MIT with a degree in electrical engineering, one of 3 women in my class. My parents drove my brother to his job interview at a gas station the same day because men needed steady work. They told me to take the trolley. "What did you do?" I took the trolley, and on that ride I met a venture capitalist who was impressed by a young woman in a cap and gown reading technical journals. He funded my first company. She turned to me, her eyes twinkling. "Sold it 5 years later for enough money to make my parents reconsider which child they'd bet on." The bus stopped and more people crammed on. A woman with a stroller struggled with the step and I jumped up to help her. When I sat back down, Rosa was watching me with approval. "Tell me about your brother," she said. I thought about where to begin. Jake is 2 years older, dropped out of state college, community college, and online university. Each time my parents said he just hadn't found his passion yet. Meanwhile, I was pulling all-nighters in the computer lab building something that could save lives. But every family dinner was about Jake's next big idea. What kind of ideas? Drop-shipping businesses that never shipped anything. A podcast about cryptocurrency where he couldn't explain what blockchain meant. A fitness influencer career that lasted exactly 3 Instagram posts. I shook my head, but each failure just meant he needed more support, more money, more faith. Rosa pulled out her phone and showed me an old newspaper clipping she'd saved as a photo. The headline read, "Local woman builds tech empire after family favors son." 1963, she said. My brother crashed the car they wouldn't let me borrow. By then I owned 6 cars and a house in Cambridge. But that wasn't what changed things. What did? Success without bitterness, harder to achieve than any algorithm you'll ever write. She studied my face. "Tell me about your AI system." I glanced around the bus, but everyone was absorbed in their own morning misery. It started as a project to detect patterns in diagnostic imaging that human doctors might miss. Early cancer cells, blood clots forming arterial weaknesses. The kind of things that kill people because they're caught too late. And now it's proven to be 97% more accurate than traditional methods. In trials, we caught stage 1 pancreatic cancer in 12 patients. Pancreatic cancer, Rosa, the silent killer. All 12 are alive today because of early treatment. Rosa's hand found mine and squeezed. "How many hours did you work on this?" I stopped counting after 2,000. Every night while Jake played video games in the next room, I was teaching machines to see death before it arrived. Every weekend while my parents drove him to another networking opportunity, I was in the lab refining the algorithm. The bus turned onto University Avenue and the campus came into view. My stomach tightened with a mixture of excitement and dread. "They don't know, do they?" Rosa asked softly, "about the deal." "No, they've never asked about my work. Mom calls it computer stuff and changes the subject. Dad thinks I'm studying to be a programmer like it's 1995, and that's the only tech job that exists." And when they find out, I'd been trying not to think about that. They'll probably ask why I kept it from them, while conveniently forgetting they never showed enough interest to discover it themselves. Rosa reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. The name on it made my jaw drop. Rosa Fitzgerald, CEO of Fitzgerald Ventures. "You're the Rosa Fitzgerald you disappeared 5 years ago. Forbes said you retired to an island somewhere." She laughed. "Forbes says a lot of things. I've been working quietly, investing in overlooked talent. Young women whose families don't see their potential. Young women who take buses to their graduations while their brothers get Teslas." The bus was approaching my stop. As I stood to leave, Rosa grabbed my wrist gently. "Marcia, when they announce your success today, your family will react in ways that might hurt worse than their neglect. Sudden wealth reveals character and not always pleasantly. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about Jake's smirk this morning, my mother's distracted congratulations, my father's dismissal of my graduation thing. "I've been preparing for it for 22 years. Rosa smiled. "Then let me give you one more piece of advice. When you stand on that stage today, when your moment arrives, don't look for them in the audience. Look for yourself. The girl who rode buses and worked nights and built miracles in computer labs. She's the only one who matters." The bus doors hissed open. As I stepped off, Rosa called out, "I'll be watching, dear. 3rd row, center section. And Marcia, I have a feeling this won't be our last conversation." Walking across campus in my cap and gown, I felt lighter somehow. The weight of my family's indifference hadn't changed, but Rosa's words had reframed it. I wasn't the invisible daughter anymore. I was the woman who turned invisibility into a superpower, working in shadows until I was ready to step into the light. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Jake looks so handsome at the dealership, wish you could see." I deleted it without responding and kept walking toward my future. In 90 minutes, everything would change. But first, I had a stage to cross and a diploma to claim, even if I had to do it alone. The university auditorium loomed ahead, its steps already crowded with graduates and their families. Somewhere in that chaos, my assigned seats sat empty, but third row center Rosa Fitzgerald would be watching. And somehow that felt like enough. The auditorium was a sea of black gowns and proud families. I made my way through the crowd, clutching my program and trying to ignore the knots in my stomach. Every few steps I passed, classmates embracing parents posing for photos, their joy so pure, it made my chest ache. "Marcia, over here." My roommate Sarah waved frantically from near the entrance. Her entire family surrounded her parents, grandparents, siblings, even what looked like a few cousins. They all wore matching purple shirts with Sarah's squad printed on them. "You look beautiful," Sarah's mom gushed, adjusting my honor cords. "Where's your family? We saved seats near ours." "They're running late," I managed. "Car trouble." The lie tasted bitter, but less bitter than the truth. Sarah's grandmother pressed a flower into my hand, a white rose from her garden. "For luck, dear, every graduate needs someone to give them flowers." I blinked back tears and thanked her, tucking the rose into my gown pocket. As I walked away, I heard Sarah's little brother ask why I was alone. His mother shushed him, but the question followed me into the auditorium. The graduate seating was alphabetical. Blackwell put me in the second row, close enough to see everything, far enough to feel exposed. I found my chair and sank into it immediately, pulling out my phone. No texts from my parents. Nothing from Jake, but there was an email from Professor Hartley. 15 minutes until showtime. Marcus Chen just arrived. You ready to change the world? Marcia. A voice from my left. David Chen from my advanced algorithms class slid into his seat beside me. "Can you believe we actually made it?" "Barely," I said, grateful for the distraction. "Remember freshman year when we thought data structures was going to end us?" He laughed. "You saved my ass in that class. My parents still talk about the tutoring you gave me. They're here somewhere, probably crying already." He paused, glancing around. "Are yours coming?" "They might be late." David didn't press, but I caught the flash of understanding in his eyes. He'd been in enough classes with me to know my family never showed up for anything. The auditorium filled rapidly. The family section was a riot of balloons, flowers, and hand-painted signs. I found the seats assigned to the Blackwell family, 3 empty chairs in the 5th row, perfect view of the stage. The seats on either side filled with other families, their excitement spilling over into the vacant spaces meant for mine. My phone buzzed. Finally, a text from Dad. "Traffic at dealership. Jake's Tesla is amazing, red with black interior. Might be late." Might be late to my college graduation, the one I'd worked 4 years to achieve. I typed and deleted a dozen responses before settling on, "Ceremony starts in 10 minutes. His reply came instantly, "Do our best." Dean Morrison took the stage for sound check, and the energy in the room shifted. This was really happening. 4 years of sacrifice, struggle, and solitary achievement was culminating in this moment, and the 3 people who should care most were at a car dealership fawning over my underachieving brother's new toy. "Everyone, please take your seats," Dean Morrison announced. "We'll be starting promptly at 10. I watched families scramble for positions, cameras at ready. In the 3rd row center, I spotted Rosa. She caught my eye and gave me a small nod, her presence steadying something in me. The processional music began, and we stood in unison. As we filed onto the stage, I couldn't help but scan the family section one more time. The Blackwell seats remained empty, 3 gaps in an otherwise packed crowd like missing teeth in a smile. Ladies and gentlemen, Dean Morrison began, "Welcome to the 43rd commencement ceremony for the School of Engineering and Computer Science." The crowd erupted in cheers. Camera flashes created a constellation of light. I sat ramrod straight, hands folded in my lap, trying to look anywhere but at those empty chairs. The opening speeches blurred together, words about achievement, future potential. All I could think about was the Tesla dealership 45 minutes away, where my family was probably test driving Jake's new car while I sat here alone. 20 minutes in, still no sign of them. The dean had moved on to recognizing honor students. My name would be called soon for summa cum laude. Would anyone even clap? Before we continue, Dean Morrison said, "I've been informed that we have a slight change to our program. Some special guests have requested to present at the end of our ceremony, so we'll be adjusting the order of events." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I caught Professor Hartley's eye from her seat among the faculty. She winked. My phone vibrated. "Mom, Jake just let me drive the Tesla, so Smooth Hope ceremony is going well." Hope ceremony is going well? Like she was tracking a package, not missing her daughter's graduation. 30 minutes in. The family seats still empty. Around me, parents stood to photograph their children, shouting names and waving. The silence around my name felt deafening. "You okay?" David whispered. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The white rose in my pocket pressed against my ribs, a reminder that at least someone had thought to give me flowers. The dean called the first row to stand for their walk across the stage. My row would be next. I'd practiced this moment in my mind, walking across the stage to receive my diploma, hearing my name echo through the auditorium, seeing my parents' proud faces in the crowd. The reality was about to be very different. A commotion at the back of the auditorium caught my attention. University officials were escorting someone toward the stage. No, not someone. Multiple people in expensive suits. My heart rate spiked as I recognized Marcus Chen from his TechCrunch interviews. The CEO of Technova Industries was here just as Professor Hartley had promised. "Excuse me, Miss Blackwell." A university official appeared at my elbow. "Could you come with me for a moment? There's been a change to the program that involves you." David's eyebrows shot up. Around us, other graduates craned their necks to see what was happening. I followed the official to the side of the stage, my mind racing. "What's going on?" I asked. "You'll see in a moment. Just wait here until the dean calls you." From this vantage point, I could see the entire auditorium. The 3 empty seats seemed to grow larger, more obvious, but I could also see Rosa leaning forward with anticipation, Professor Hartley trying to contain a smile, and the Technova executives setting up something on the podium. My phone buzzed one last time. "Jake, nice of you to not tell us you had some special presentation. Mom and Dad are breaking speed limits to get there. You could have mentioned it." I stared at the text. Somehow he'd made even this about him, about what I hadn't done for the family. I turned off my phone and slipped it into my pocket with the white rose. Whatever was about to happen, I'd face it the same way I'd faced everything else in my life, alone, but not helpless. Invisible to my family, perhaps, but not to the world that was about to meet the real Marcia Blackwell. 45 minutes into the ceremony, I saw them. The auditorium doors burst open with unnecessary drama because Jake couldn't enter a room without making sure everyone noticed. My parents followed in his wake, my mother's heels clicking loudly on the floor as they scrambled to find their seats. From my position at the side of the stage, I had a perfect view of their entrance. Dad's tie was crooked, probably from test driving the Tesla. Mom clutched her phone in one hand and what looked like a Tesla key fob in the other, waving it around as she talked animatedly to the usher, trying to direct them to their seats. Jake strutted down the aisle like he owned the place, his new car keys spinning on his finger. They found the Blackwell seats just as Dean Morrison was midway through announcing cum laude graduates. The family beside them shot irritated looks as my mother squeezed past, apologizing loudly enough for the entire section to hear. Jake dropped into his seat and immediately pulled out his phone, probably to post about his new car. Dad at least had the decency to look slightly embarrassed as he settled in, though he kept checking his watch like he had somewhere more important to be. As I call your names, the dean continued trying to ignore the disruption. Please come forward to receive your recognition. I watched my mother finally notice me standing at the side of the stage. She waved enthusiastically like she'd been there all along, then turned to show Jake pointing me out. He glanced up from his phone long enough to give me a thumbs up that felt more mocking than supportive. The contrast was painful. All around them, families sat attentively, eyes fixed on their graduates' cameras, ready. My family looked like they'd stumbled into the wrong event. Mom was now taking selfies with the Tesla key fob visible in frame. Dad had already pulled out his phone, probably checking work emails. Jake was showing something on his screen to the unfortunate father sitting next to him, no doubt the Tesla's specifications. Summa cum laude, Dean Morrison announced, our highest academic achievers. This was supposed to be my moment. Hearing my name called for the highest honors, seeing my parents' faces light up with pride. Instead, I watched Mom try to get the perfect angle for her selfie, while Dad typed furiously on his phone. Marcia Blackwell. My name rang through the auditorium. I walked onto the stage, my legs steady despite everything. The applause was polite but genuine, led enthusiastically by Rosa in the third row and Professor Hartley from the faculty section. Sarah's family whooped from their section, her grandmother standing to clap. But from the Blackwell seats, Mom had missed my name entirely, too busy showing the woman next to her something on her phone. Dad glanced up briefly, gave a perfunctory clap, then returned to his typing. Jake didn't even look up. I accepted my honor cords from the dean, shook his hand, and returned to my place at the side of the stage. The moment I dreamed of for 4 years had passed, barely noticed by the 3 people who should have cared most. Before we continue, Dean Morrison said, I'd like to address the special presentation I mentioned earlier. We have some distinguished guests who've requested to speak. But first, he paused, looking directly at the family section. I'd like to ask everyone to please silence their phones and give our speakers your full attention. What you're about to hear is quite extraordinary. My mother finally looked up, probably because she thought someone important was about to speak. If only she knew. Mr. Blackwell. An official appeared at my father's seat. Mr. Jake Blackwell, we'd like you to come to the stage. I froze. This wasn't part of the plan Professor Hartley had described. What was Jake being called for? Jake's face lit up like Christmas morning. He practically leaped from his seat, smoothing his hair as he made his way to the aisle. Mom grabbed Dad's arm, her excitement palpable. Did you arrange this? I saw her mouth to my father. He shook his head, looking as confused as I felt. Jake bounded onto the stage with the confidence of someone who'd never met a spotlight he didn't want to steal. The dean directed him to the podium, and my stomach sank. Of course, on my graduation day at my ceremony, Jake would somehow make this about himself. Thank you, Dean Morrison, Jake said into the microphone, his voice carrying that false depth he used when trying to sound important. When my parents told me about speaking today, I knew I had to share some thoughts about family support and believing in your dreams. My parents told him. I looked at Mom and Dad, who were beaming with pride. They'd arranged for Jake to speak at my graduation. The rage that filled me was so hot it felt cold. You know, Jake continued, adjusting the microphone like he'd done this 1,000 times. Not everyone takes the traditional path to success. Some of us, we're entrepreneurs at heart. We see opportunities where others see obstacles. I watched my classmates shift uncomfortably. This was an engineering graduation filled with people who'd spent 4 years in brutal coursework. Jake's empty motivational speaking was landing like a lead balloon. My parents never gave up on me, he said, gesturing to Mom and Dad, even when I left traditional education to pursue my ventures in the digital space, the drop shipping industry, cryptocurrency consulting, influence marketing. They supported every pivot, every evolution of my journey. Someone in the graduate section coughed. It sounded suspiciously like bullshit hidden in a cough. David was trying not to laugh beside me. And today, Jake's voice rose with emotion. Their faith paid off. As I picked up my new Tesla this morning, paid for with Bitcoin investments I made with family seed money, I realized success isn't about degrees or traditional achievements. It's about vision. It's about family who believes in you. I couldn't breathe. He was really doing this. Taking credit for cryptocurrency gains made with money from my college fund, speaking at my graduation about his success while I stood there invisible in my cap and gown. My sister Marcia is graduating today, he added almost as an afterthought. She took the book smart route, and that's great for her. But I want graduates to know there are other paths. While she was in the library, I was in the real world making connections, building my brand. The auditorium had gone from uncomfortable to hostile. These were engineering students who'd sacrificed years for their education. Jake's dismissal of their achievements as a book smart route wasn't going over well. Dean Morrison stepped forward, his face tight with controlled irritation. "Thank you, Mr. Blackwell. That was illuminating. However, we do have our scheduled speakers waiting." But Jake wasn't done. "One more thing. Success is about taking risks, like when I convinced my parents to invest my sister's college fund in my ventures instead of traditional savings. That's the kind of bold thinking that bought my Tesla." The auditorium went silent. He'd actually said it, out loud, that my college fund had paid for his failures and his car. "That's quite enough," Dean Morrison said firmly, practically pulling Jake away from the microphone. "Our next speakers have requested to present immediately." As Jake strutted back to his seat, high-fiving our confused father, I caught sight of Marcus Chen rising from his position near the stage. His expression was one of barely contained amusement. Professor Hartley appeared at my elbow. "I'm sorry about that," she whispered. "Your parents requested it last minute when they heard there would be special speakers. The administration couldn't refuse without revealing why. But don't worry, what comes next will make this all worthwhile." I nodded, not trusting my voice. In the family section, my parents were congratulating Jake like he'd just delivered the Gettysburg Address. Mom was already posting about her entrepreneur son inspiring graduates. 3 executives from Tech Nova Industries took the stage, their presence immediately commanding attention in a way Jake's never could. The auditorium settled, sensing something significant was about to happen. Marcus Chen took the microphone, his voice calm and authoritative. "Thank you for that. Interesting perspective on alternative paths to success. Now we'd like to talk about a different kind of achievement, the kind that takes 4 years of dedication, thousands of hours of work, and the brilliance to save lives through innovation." My parents were still fussing over Jake, barely paying attention. They had no idea the universe was about to shift beneath their feet. But I stood ready at the side of the stage, my hand finding the white rose in my pocket, drawing strength from a stranger's kindness as my moment finally approached. Jake's words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. My college fund. He'd admitted to the entire auditorium that my parents had given him my college fund for his ventures. The same fund that forced me to work 3 jobs while maintaining a perfect GPA. I watched him settle back into his seat, accepting Mom's enthusiastic praise and Dad's proud shoulder squeeze. Around them, other parents were exchanging glances, their expressions ranging from disbelief to disgust. One mother actually pulled her program up to hide her face, secondhand embarrassment radiating from her posture. But Jake wasn't finished basking in his moment. He stood up again, apparently deciding the audience needed more of his wisdom. "Actually, Dean Morrison, if I could just add one more thing." The dean's face went through several expressions before settling on resigned politeness. "Mr. Blackwell, we really must move on to our scheduled program." "This'll just take a second," Jake insisted, already moving back toward the stage. The auditorium collectively held its breath. My classmates were looking at me with a mixture of sympathy and horror. David actually reached over and patted my hand. Jake grabbed the microphone before anyone could stop him. I forgot to mention something important about family sacrifice. See my sister here, she always had her nose in books, always talking about changing the world with computers or whatever. But while she was dreaming, I was doing. My fingernails dug into my palms. Around me, I could hear graduates muttering. Someone whispered, "Is this guy for real?" When I started my dropshipping business, Marcia said it wouldn't work. When I got into crypto, she called it gambling. But who's driving a Tesla now? He laughed at his own joke. Nobody else did. Professor Hartley was at the side of the stage, speaking urgently with university security. Marcus Chen and his executives watched with barely concealed amusement, like they were witnessing a train wreck they'd been warned about in advance. The thing about book-smart people, Jake continued warming to his theme, is they don't understand real business. They think you need degrees and credentials, but what you really need is vision and family who believes in that vision. My parents saw my potential when everyone else, including my sister, just saw failure. A graduate in the front row stood up. "Dude, shut up. This is her graduation, not your TED Talk." The outburst broke the spell. Other graduates started voicing their displeasure. "Sit down. Nobody cares about your Tesla. Let us graduate in peace." Jake's confident smile wavered. He wasn't used to audiences that couldn't be won over with buzzwords and false bravado. "I'm just trying to inspire you all to think outside the box." "The box where you store other people's money," another graduate shouted. Dean Morrison finally reached the microphone, his patience exhausted. "Mr. Blackwell, you need to return to your seat immediately or you'll be escorted out." "But I'm not done with my speech about entrepreneurship." "Yes," the dean said firmly, "you are." Security guards appeared at the edge of the stage. Jake's face flushed red, but he must have realized he'd pushed too far. As he handed back the microphone, he couldn't resist one final jab. "Hey, fine, but remember what I said about taking risks. My sister might have wasted 4 years here, but I built a future. Bitcoin's the future, not some degree in computers." The boos started before he even left the stage. My mother stood up in the family section, looking around wildly, like she couldn't understand why people were reacting negatively to her precious son. Dad at least had the sense to look embarrassed, pulling at his collar as Jake stomped back to his seat. "I apologize for that interruption," Dean Morrison said once Jake was seated. "Now, as I was saying, we have distinguished guests from Technova Industries who've requested to make a special announcement. Mr. Marcus Chen." Marcus Chen rose from his seat with the quiet authority of someone who'd built a billion-dollar company from nothing. Unlike Jake's desperate grab for attention, Chen commanded the room simply by existing. As he approached the podium, I noticed my parents finally paying attention, probably because they recognized the kind of actual success that Jake could only pretend to possess. "Thank you, Dean Morrison," Chen said, his voice carrying easily through the auditorium without Jake's theatrical projection. "After that, interesting perspective on success. I'd like to share a different story. A story about a student who worked in silence while others made noise, who built something extraordinary while her family's attention was elsewhere." My heart hammered against my ribs. Mom had put her phone down, sensing something significant. Jake slouched in his seat, arms crossed, clearly bitter about being upstaged. 2 years ago, Chen continued, my company began searching for breakthrough technology in medical diagnostics. We evaluated proposals from major universities, established tech companies, even government research labs. But the solution came from an unexpected source, an undergraduate student working alone in a computer lab at 2 a.m. Rosa leaned forward in her seat, a small smile playing at her lips. Professor Hartley moved closer to the stage, positioning herself where I could see her reassuring nod. "This student," Chen said, "didn't have family money, didn't have connections, didn't even have anyone to celebrate with when her first algorithm successfully detected stage 1 pancreatic cancer in test images. What she had was brilliant determination, and the kind of vision that actually changes lives instead of just talking about it. The dig at Jake wasn't subtle. Several graduates actually applauded. My brother's face darkened and he started to stand, but Dad pulled him back down. Over the past year, this student's AI system has been tested in 3 major hospitals. The results are unprecedented. 47 lives saved through early detection. 47 families who still have their loved ones because a 22-year-old woman chose to solve problems instead of just talking about solving them. The auditorium had gone completely silent. Even the restless families in the back seemed to sense something momentous building. My mother was staring at the stage with confused intensity, like she was trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. The patent for this technology was filed 6 months ago, Chen announced. As of 3 a.m. this morning, Technova Industries has acquired exclusive rights to this revolutionary diagnostic system. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Patent acquisitions weren't unusual, but for undergraduate work to attract Technova's attention was almost unheard of. The terms of the deal, Chen paused for effect, $50 million upfront with performance bonuses that could triple that amount within 5 years. The auditorium erupted. Gasps, exclamations, a few shrieks of disbelief. In the family section, my father's program slipped from his hands. My mother's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Jake went rigid, his face cycling through expressions too quickly to track. But Chen wasn't finished. This represents the largest patent acquisition in our company's history for work developed by an undergraduate student. It also makes the developer one of the youngest technology billionaires in America. Dean Morrison returned to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, before we reveal the identity of this remarkable graduate, there's something else you should know. The student insisted on one condition in the contract, that a portion of the proceeds fund scholarships for students who, like her, have had to work multiple jobs to afford their education, students whose families couldn't or wouldn't support their dreams. That broke through my composure. Tears blurred my vision as I remembered every late shift at the campus coffee shop, every weekend spent tutoring instead of resting, every meal skipped to save money for textbooks. I'd written that condition, thinking of all the other invisible daughters and sons out there working in shadows while their siblings got the spotlight. The Overlooked Achievers Fund will provide full scholarships to 50 students per year, the dean continued. Because this graduate believes brilliance shouldn't be limited by family circumstances or favoritism. In the family section, understanding was dawning on my parents' faces with the slow horror of people realizing they'd bet on the wrong horse. Mom grabbed Dad's arm, her knuckles white. Jake had gone pale, his Tesla keys forgotten in his lap. Marcus Chen returned to the microphone, his smile widening. So without further delay, let me introduce the newest member of Tech's Billionaire Club, the creator of the Blackwell Diagnostic AI system. He paused, and in that silence, I heard my mother's sharp intake of breath. She knew. Finally, after 22 years, she knew which child she should have been watching. Miss Marcia Blackwell. The next few moments blurred together, the spotlight finding me, the thunderous applause, Rosa standing in the 3rd row, tears streaming down her face as she clapped, Professor Hartley beaming with pride, Sarah's family on their feet, her grandmother waving the white rose she'd given me. But what I remembered most clearly was the look on Jake's face as understanding crashed over him. His expression crumbled like a sandcastle at high tide, ego dissolving into shock, then disbelief, then something that might have been the first genuine emotion I'd ever seen from him. Fear. He'd spent the morning bragging about his Tesla bought with my college fund. I'd spent it becoming the kind of success he could only pretend to be. As I walked toward the stage on legs that felt disconnected from my body, I passed the family section. Dad had his head in his hands. Mom was frantically whispering to Jake, who sat frozen like his operating system had crashed. They'd forced me to take the bus to my graduation while buying him a car. Now I could buy the entire bus company. The irony was perfect. But as I climbed the steps to the stage, Marcus Chen extending his hand in welcome, I realized something: their reaction didn't matter anymore. I'd spent 22 years trying to be seen by people who were determined to look elsewhere. Now the whole world was watching, and my family would have to see me whether they wanted to or not. Marcus Chen's handshake was firm, grounding me in reality as cameras flashed from every direction. Behind him, two other executives flanked the podium, a woman with silver-streaked hair carrying a leather portfolio, and a younger man setting up a presentation screen. "Marcia," Chen said quietly for my ears only, "you ready for this?" I nodded, not trusting my voice yet. In my peripheral vision, I could see my family in their seats. Mom appeared to be hyperventilating into her program, while Dad stared at the stage like he'd seen a ghost. Jake hadn't moved at all, frozen in place with his mouth slightly open. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chen addressed the audience, "what you're about to witness represents not just a business transaction, but the future of preventive medicine. Dr. Patricia Williams, our Chief Medical Officer, will explain the technology's impact." The silver-haired woman stepped forward, her presence immediately commanding. "Good morning. I'm here to tell you about a 22-year-old who has accomplished what entire research departments couldn't, creating an AI system that sees death before it arrives." The auditorium was pin-drop silent. Even the restless toddlers in the family section seemed to sense the gravity of the moment. 18 months ago, Dr. Williams continued, Marcia Blackwell approached her professor with an idea. What if machine learning could detect cellular changes invisible to the human eye? What if we could find cancer, blood clots, and arterial weaknesses before symptoms appeared? She clicked a remote and the screen filled with medical imaging. "This is a standard diagnostic scan. To trained radiologists, it appears completely normal. The patient felt fine. Traditional screening found nothing concerning." Another click. The same image appeared with subtle areas highlighted in blue. This is what Miss Blackwell's AI saw. Microscopic cellular changes indicating stage 1 pancreatic cancer. The patient, a 43-year-old mother of 3, is alive today because of early intervention. Her children still have their mother because a college student refused to accept the limitations of human vision. I heard someone sobbing in the audience. The reality of what I'd built was hitting people in a way my family's neglect never could have imagined. "But the story doesn't end there," Dr. Williams said. "When we began testing Miss Blackwell's system at Johns Hopkins, something remarkable happened. Doctors who initially resisted AI involvement became its biggest champions. Why? Because the system doesn't replace human judgment, it enhances it. It's like giving radiologists superhuman vision." The screen changed to show statistics. In 6 months of trials across 3 hospitals, 12 cases of stage 1 pancreatic cancer detected, 15 blood clots prevented from becoming fatal, 20 arterial weaknesses found before rupture, 47 lives saved. She paused, letting the numbers sink in. 47 families who won't plan funerals this year, 47 people who will see their children graduate, get married, have children of their own, because Marcia Blackwell worked alone in a computer lab while others slept. The emotion in her voice was genuine, and it rippled through the audience. I saw hardened engineering professors wiping their eyes, parents holding their children tighter, and my own parents sitting in stupefied silence as they began to grasp what their overlooked daughter had accomplished. Marcus Chen returned to the microphone. "The financial details matter less than the human impact, but they're worth noting. $50 million upfront for the patent. Projected revenues of $2 billion within 5 years as we deploy globally. Miss Blackwell retains a 20% stake in all developments, plus performance bonuses tied to lives saved." He smiled at the gasp that ran through the crowd. "By conservative estimates, she'll be worth over $400 million before her 25th birthday. But here's what impressed us most. Her first question wasn't about the money. It was about ensuring the technology remained affordable for hospitals in underserved communities. The younger executive stepped forward with a wooden plaque. This commemorates the first installation of the Blackwell diagnostic system at Baltimore General, where it's already saved 3 lives in its first week of operation. As I accepted the plaque, I caught sight of Jake in the family section. He was typing furiously on his phone, probably trying to fact-check what he was hearing. Good luck with that, I thought. This was real success, not the kind you could fake with buzzwords and borrowed money. There's one more element to this announcement, Chen said. Miss Blackwell, would you like to share your vision for the Overlooked Achievers Fund? I stepped to the microphone, my voice steadier than I'd expected. Thank you, Mr. Chen. When I started this project, I was working 3 jobs to pay for school. The coffee shop shift ended at 2 a.m., which is when I'd head to the computer lab. Not because I'm especially noble, but because it was the only time I could get uninterrupted access to the processing power I needed. I found Rosa's eyes in the audience drawing strength from her encouraging nod. I know there are brilliant minds in this room and beyond who face similar challenges. Students whose families can't or won't support their dreams. Who are told they're too ambitious, too book-smart, not practical enough. Who watch their siblings receive every advantage while they take buses to their own graduations. That landed exactly where I'd aimed it. My mother flinched like she'd been slapped. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. Jake had given up on his phone and was staring at his Tesla keys like they'd turned to ash in his hands. The Overlooked Achievers Fund will provide full scholarships, living expenses, and mentorship to 50 students per year. But more than money, it provides recognition. Proof that someone sees their late-night efforts, believes in their quiet brilliance, and understands that the best innovations often come from those who've been ignored. The applause started slowly, led by my fellow graduates who understood exactly what I was describing. It built and built until the entire auditorium was on its feet, except for 3 people in the 5th row who remained seated as if glued to their chairs. Dr. Williams returned to the microphone. Before we conclude, there's something else. The AI system wasn't Miss Blackwell's only innovation. She also developed a behavioral analysis program that documents patterns of interaction. Originally designed to improve the diagnostic AI's interface, it had an interesting side effect. My stomach clenched. I knew where this was going. The program has been running in background mode for 2 years, creating a comprehensive record of Miss Blackwell's work environment. Every lab session, every late-night breakthrough, every sacrifice made in pursuit of this goal. It also documented other patterns. She clicked the remote again. The screen showed a timeline of my college years marking major milestones, academic achievements on top, family events on the bottom. The contrast was stark. Every award, every publication, every breakthrough marked by a notable absence below the line. My family had missed everything. This data proved invaluable in patent documentation, Dr. Williams said carefully. It established clear timelines of independent work. No family involvement, no external support, just one young woman's determination to save lives. The unspoken message was clear: my family couldn't claim any credit for my success. The AI had documented their absence as thoroughly as it detected cancer cells. Chen stepped forward for the conclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, we at Technova believe genius can come from anywhere, but it flourishes best when recognized and supported. Today, we're proud to recognize Marcia Blackwell, whose brilliance was overlooked by those closest to her, but will now benefit millions worldwide. As I stood on that stage, accepting congratulations from executives and university officials, I felt the weight of 22 years lifting from my shoulders. In the audience, my classmates cheered. Rosa wiped away tears. Professor Hartley beamed with the pride of a mentor whose faith had been vindicated. And in the 5th row, my family sat in devastated silence, finally understanding what they'd missed while buying Jake his Tesla. The overlooked daughter had become impossible to ignore. The invisible had become invaluable, and the child they'd bet against had won everything. But the announcement wasn't quite over. Dean Morrison approached the microphone with an expression that suggested more surprises were coming. In the wings, I noticed university security positioning themselves near the family section. Whatever was about to happen, they were prepared for it. Before we continue with our regular program, the dean said, "Miss Blackwell has requested a few moments to address some personal matters." Marcia. This was it. The moment I'd been planning since Professor Hartley first told me about the announcement. Time to face the family who'd forced me to take the bus to my graduation. Time for some long overdue truth. I stood at the podium, looking out at hundreds of faces. The weight of the moment pressed down on me, but beneath it was something else. Freedom. 22 years of being invisible had ended in the most visible way possible. "Thank you, Dean Morrison." I began, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. "Before we continue, I want to address something. This morning, my father told me to take the bus to graduation because they needed the car to buy my brother a Tesla." A collective intake of breath rippled through the auditorium. In the fifth row, my mother's face had gone from pale to crimson. Dad was sinking lower in his seat. Jake looked like he wanted to bolt, but the security presence kept him frozen in place. "I'm not sharing this for sympathy," I continued. "I'm sharing it because it perfectly represents a pattern many of us know too well. The overlooked child, the one whose achievements are invisible while their siblings' failures are reframed as learning experiences." I found my voice growing stronger, fueled by years of silenced frustration. My brother received my college fund for his business ventures. While I worked night shifts to pay for textbooks, he was losing that money on cryptocurrency speculation. While I debugged code at 3 a.m., my parents were assuring him that his next idea would be the big one. The jumbotron screens around the auditorium flickered to life. Someone in the tech booth, probably sympathetic to my story, began displaying photos. There I was at the coffee shop, still in my lab clothes at midnight. Another photo from the campus newspaper accepting an award with no family in sight. A third from last Christmas alone in the lab, while my family's social media showed them celebrating Jake's latest business launch. "But here's what I learned," I said, watching my parents shrink with each revealed image. "Being overlooked can be a gift. It taught me to validate myself, to work without expecting praise, to find mentors who saw what my family couldn't. Professor Hartley, who guided my research. Rosa Fitzgerald, who I met on the bus this morning and who believed in a stranger's potential." Rosa stood up in the third row, tears streaming down her face as she began to clap. Others joined her, a wave of support that seemed to physically push against my family's shame. To my fellow overlooked achievers, I continued, "Your invisibility is temporary. Your work matters even if your family doesn't see it. Your brilliance is real even if it's not acknowledged at dinner tables or family gatherings. And sometimes the best response to being undervalued is overwhelming success." The dean returned to the podium, clearly ready to move the program along, but I wasn't quite finished. "One last thing," I said, looking directly at my family for the first time. "Mom, Dad, Jake, you chose to prioritize a car over my graduation. You chose to believe in Jake's potential while dismissing mine as book smart. You chose favoritism over fairness. Those were your choices. This," I gestured to the executives, "the plaque, the revolutionary technology bearing my name, is mine." The silence that followed was deafening. Then from somewhere in the graduate section, slow clapping began. It spread like wildfire until the entire auditorium erupted. A standing ovation, not just for my achievement, but for every overlooked child who'd ever been told they were asking for too much attention. As I stepped back from the podium, Marcus Chen leaned in close. "That was brave," he said quietly. "Also probably therapeutic." 22 years of therapy in 5 minutes. I agreed. The ceremony continued with the regular graduation proceedings, but the energy had shifted. As names were called and graduates walked across the stage, there was an undercurrent of defiance of recognition. The overlooked had been seen. The invisible had been illuminated. When they called my name for my official diploma, the cheers were thunderous. I walked across the stage not as the girl who'd taken the bus, but as the woman who'd changed medicine. The woman who'd turned neglect into drive, dismissal into determination. As I accepted my diploma from Dean Morrison, he whispered, "Your family is trying to leave. Security is keeping them in place per your request." I'd anticipated this. Through Professor Hartley, I'd arranged for security to ensure my family stayed for the entire ceremony. They'd been 45 minutes late to support me. They could sit through the consequences of their choices. "Thank you," I told the dean. "They need to see this through to the end." I returned to my seat among my fellow graduates, my diploma heavy in my hands. Around me, classmates offered congratulations, high fives, and hugs. David whispered, "That was the most savage thing I've ever witnessed. Also, can I apply for your scholarship fund?" "Everyone can," I assured him, "especially those whose families told them to be more like their siblings." As the ceremony wound down, I kept stealing glances at my family. They looked like they'd aged years in the past hour. Mom had given up trying to maintain appearances, her face a mask of shock and regret. Dad stared at his hands like they held answers to how he'd gotten everything so wrong. And Jake looked broken. His Tesla keys lay forgotten on the floor, kicked aside by passing feet. The final speaker took the stage delivering closing remarks about bright futures and new beginnings, but I barely heard them. I was thinking about the bus ride that morning, Rosa's words about success without bitterness. It was harder than any algorithm I'd written, but necessary. When the recessional music began, graduates filed out in orderly lines. As I passed my family's row, Jake finally looked up. His eyes were red, whether from anger or tears I couldn't tell. "Marcia," he called out, his voice cracking. "Wait, please." I paused, 22 years of conditioning making me stop for my older brother, but then I remembered all the times they hadn't waited for me, all the achievements they'd walked past to get to his participation trophies. "I took the bus here," I said simply. "I'll take it home too, but don't worry, I hear they're very reliable. Every 15 minutes, just like Dad said." As I walked away, I heard my mother sob. Not the delicate tears she'd shed when Jake got his Tesla, but raw, ugly crying that came from realizing you'd backed the wrong horse so thoroughly that the race was over before you noticed it had begun. Outside the auditorium, the California sun felt different. Brighter maybe, or perhaps I was just seeing it without the shadow of invisibility for the first time. Graduates and families streamed around me, celebrations beginning in earnest. "Marcia." Rosa appeared at my elbow, slightly out of breath. "That was magnificent. Painful to watch, but magnificent." I might have gone too far. I admitted, the adrenaline starting to fade. "Nonsense," she said firmly. "You told the truth in a place where it couldn't be ignored or dismissed. That's not going too far. That's going exactly far enough." Professor Hartley joined us, her face glowing with pride. "The tech booth recorded everything. The university wants to use your speech for future orientations if you're willing. Something about inspiring overlooked students." I laughed, the sound surprising me with its lightness. "From invisible to orientation video. Sure, why not?" "Now," Rosa said, linking her arm through mine, "I believe you have a bus to catch. Mind if I join you? I have a business proposition to discuss. Something about taking your AI system global, starting with hospitals in underserved communities." As we walked toward the bus stop, I pulled out my phone to find dozens of missed calls and texts from my parents. I deleted them all without reading. They'd had 22 years to send supportive messages. The day of reckoning wasn't the time to start. Behind us, the auditorium continued emptying. Somewhere in that crowd, my family was dealing with the consequences of their choices. Jake's Tesla, bought with my college fund, would forever be a reminder of the day they discovered which child they should have been watching. But I was done looking back. Ahead lay boardrooms and breakthroughs, innovations, and impact. The overlooked daughter had graduated to a future they'd never imagined, and I was taking the bus to get there just like they'd wanted. The backstage area was controlled chaos. Graduates reuniting with families, professors, congratulating students, photographers weaving through the crowd. I'd barely made it 10 feet before university security intercepted me. Miss Blackwell, your family is in conference room B. They're insistent about speaking with you. I glanced at Rosa, who squeezed my arm. I'll wait outside. Take all the time you need, or none at all. Your choice. Professor Hartley nodded her agreement. We'll be right here, and security will stay close, just in case. Just in case, because apparently announcing you're a billionaire makes people worry about your safety, even from your own family. Conference room B was sterile, fluorescent lit, and contained the 3 people I'd spent my life trying to please. They looked up as I entered, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Mom spoke first, her voice shrill with indignation. How could you stand up there and humiliate us like that? The audacity of it stole my breath. Humiliate you, I told the truth. You aired family business in public. Dad's face was purple with rage. Do you have any idea what people will say? My colleagues, our neighbors, everyone at the country club? They'll say you chose to buy Jake a Tesla instead of attending your daughter's graduation, I said evenly, which is exactly what happened. Jake hadn't said a word yet. He sat slumped in his chair staring at his hands. The confident entrepreneur who'd commandeered my graduation had evaporated, leaving behind someone I barely recognized. You should have told us, Mom continued, tears streaming down her face. But they weren't tears of joy or pride. They were tears of missed opportunity. $50 million, and you didn't say a word. We're your family. When I asked, should I have told you during the family dinners I wasn't invited to because you were celebrating Jake's latest failure? Or maybe during the parent-teacher conferences you skipped? Oh, wait, how about when you were too busy to attend my science fair presentations? That's not fair, Dad protested. We had obligations. To Jake. Always to Jake. The words came out bitter, but true. Every soccer game, every participation trophy, every failed business venture got your full attention. But my achievements? Those were just the graduation thing. Mom's tears intensified. We're your parents. You owe us. I owe you nothing. The words cracked like a whip through the room. I paid back every cent you spent on my upbringing through the taxes on the money I earned working 3 jobs. The money you refused to supplement because Jake needed another laptop for his podcast that lasted 2 episodes. Security knocked on the door. Everything all right in there? Fine, I called back. We're almost done. Dad tried a different approach, his business voice clicking into place. Marcia, let's be practical here. You're young. You need guidance managing this kind of wealth. I've been in banking for 25 years. The same 25 years where you gave my college fund to Jake for cryptocurrency speculation? That shut him down. The family financial advisor who'd advised funding Jake's schemes had no credibility left. Jake finally looked up, and what I saw in his eyes caught me off guard. It wasn't anger or jealousy. It was fear. 500 applications, he said quietly. What? I've sent out 500 job applications in the last 2 years. Real ones, not the stuff I told Mom and Dad about. Every single one rejected. His voice broke. They were right to reject me. I'm 24 with no degree, no skills, and a resume full of failed businesses funded by my sister's college money. The room went silent. This was the first honest thing I'd heard from Jake in years. But you, he continued, you built something that saves lives. You became a billionaire through actual work. And I spent the morning bragging about a car I didn't earn while you took the bus to collect your diploma and change the world. Mom rounded on him. Jake, honey, don't say that. You're an entrepreneur. You just haven't found your niche yet. Stop. Jake's voice was firm. Just stop. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a leech who's been living off my sister's sacrifices while you both pretended I was special. Dad tried to interject, but Jake wasn't finished. You want to know the worst part I knew about her AI project? I walked past her working on it hundreds of times, but I never asked, never cared because it didn't involve me. He looked at me directly. I'm sorry, Marcia. Not for today, for everything. For 24 years of everything. It was the last thing I'd expected, and it knocked me off balance. But before I could respond, Mom recovered from her shock and went on the attack. You're being dramatic, Jake. And Marcia, regardless of past misunderstandings, family helps family. With your resources, you could set us all up. Jake could finally launch a successful business with proper funding. There it was, the ask. It had taken less than an hour for them to go from dismissing me to demanding money. No. Dad stood up using his height to try to intimidate me. You're going to let family struggle while you have millions. You're not struggling. You have a house car's retirement savings. What you don't have is a Tesla buying budget for Jake anymore. I remained seated, refusing to be cowed. And more importantly, you had a daughter who needed support and you chose to ignore her. That was your choice. Living with the consequences is mine. Mom grabbed my arm. Marcia, Eleanor, Blackwell, you will not let go of me. My voice was ice. She didn't. Her fingers dug in harder. We are your parents. You will respect us. The door burst open. Security entered, followed by someone I didn't expect, Marcus Chen himself. I believe Miss Blackwell asked you to release her, Chen said mildly, but there was steel underneath. Mom let go like she'd been burned. Dad stepped back, suddenly realizing how this looked. We're her family, Dad said weakly. We're just talking. Talking doesn't usually require physical restraint, Chen observed. He looked at me. Miss Blackwell, are you ready to go? We have a flight to catch. The Japanese Medical Consortium wants to discuss implementation. A flight to Japan. To discuss my technology with global leaders, while my family stood here demanding money they didn't earn from success they didn't support. Almost ready, I said. I need 1 more minute. Chen nodded. I'll be outside with security. The threat was subtle but clear. I turned back to my family, seeing them clearly for perhaps the first time. Not as the all-powerful arbiters of worth I'd built them up to be, but as flawed, biased people who'd made terrible choices. I'm establishing a trust, I said. It will pay for family therapy if you choose to attend. It will cover Jake's education if he wants to earn a real degree, but there will be no cash payments, no business investments, no Tesla replacements. That's not enough, Mom started, but I cut her off. It's more than you gave me, and it comes with conditions. Public acknowledgement of your favoritism, participation in workshops about family bias, and absolutely no contact with me until you've completed 6 months of therapy. You can't cut us off, Dad protested. I'm not cutting you off. I'm establishing boundaries, something I should have done years ago. I stood to leave. The trust documents will be sent to your lawyer. You can accept the terms or not. That's your choice. Marcia, please, Jake said quietly. I want to change. I want to earn a real future. Could you ever forgive me? I pause at the door considering. Ask me in 6 months, after therapy, after you've done something with your life besides spend money you didn't earn. Maybe then we can start over. And if we refuse, Mom's voice was cold now, the tears dried up. Then you can explain to everyone at the country club why your billionaire daughter wants nothing to do with you. I'm sure that will go over well. I left them there in that sterile room with their shock and their choices. Outside, Chen waited with Rosa and Professor Hartley. How did it go? Rosa asked gently. About as expected. Demands for money claims of ownership, one attempted guilt trip via physical restraint. I managed a shaky laugh. You know family stuff. Chen checked his phone. The car to the airport leaves in 20 minutes, unless you'd prefer to take the bus. The joke surprised a genuine laugh out of me. I think I've had enough buses for one day. As we walked toward the exit, Professor Hartley asked, "Any regrets?" I thought about it. About 22 years of seeking approval from people incapable of giving it. About the little girl who just wanted her parents to notice her achievements. About the young woman who'd turned neglect into innovation. "No," I said finally. "No regrets. They made their choices. I made mine, and mine saved lives." We emerged into the afternoon sun where a sleek black car waited. As I climbed in, I saw my family exiting the building. They looked smaller, somehow diminished by their own choices. Jake raised a hand, maybe in farewell, maybe in acknowledgement of what could have been. I didn't wave back. I was done looking backward. Ahead lay Tokyo partnerships and a future where my worth wasn't determined by people who couldn't see it. The car pulled away from the curb, leaving the past behind. Through the rear window, I watched my parents and brother grow smaller until they disappeared entirely, just like I had been to them for 22 years. The difference was I was choosing to move forward. They were being left behind, and that more than any technology or money was the real reversal of fortune. The flight to Japan was scheduled for 6 p.m., giving me 3 hours to wrap up loose ends. I should have known Jake wouldn't let things end with our conference room confrontation. He'd always needed the last word, especially when he was losing. I was in the university president's office signing papers for the scholarship fund when security knocked. "Your brother is in the main lobby. He says it's urgent." Chen looked up from his laptop. "Want me to have him removed?" "No," I sighed. Let's hear what urgent means in Jake's vocabulary. Probably ran out of gas money for the Tesla already. The lobby was nearly empty, most families having left for celebration dinners. Jake stood near the windows, his red Tesla visible in the parking lot like a monument to misplaced priorities. When he saw me approaching with my security detail, his expression cycled through several emotions before settling on desperate determination. "Marcia, we need to talk, alone." We just talked, with witnesses, which seems wise given Mom's grabbing hands. I kept my distance, Chen and security flanking me. "Please," he glanced at the others. 5 minutes. You owe me that." "I owe you?" The audacity nearly choked me. "Jake, I owe you exactly nothing. Less than nothing considering you spent my college fund on cryptocurrency speculation." "That's what I want to talk about." He pulled out his phone, showing me a banking app. "I still have $43,000 left from that investment. It's yours. All of it. I'll transfer it right now." I stared at the screen. 43,000 from the 100,000 my parents had given him. You lost more than half my college fund. Bitcoin crashed right after I bought. I panic sold, then it went back up. I'm not good at this stuff." His shoulders sagged. "I'm not good at anything." "Is this supposed to make me feel sorry for you?" "No." He stepped closer and security tensed. "I mean, I'm trying to... Look, I know you don't need the money now, but it's yours. It always was. I should never have taken it." I studied him, looking for the angle. Jake always had an angle. "What do you want in exchange?" "A job." The words tumbled out. "At your company, whatever company you're starting, I'll do anything. Janitorial, work, data entry, coffee runs. I don't care." There it was. "You want me to hire you after everything?" "I want to earn something real for once in my life." His voice cracked. "Do you know what it's like being the family success story when you're actually a complete failure? Every holiday, every family gathering, Mom telling everyone about her entrepreneur son while you're in the corner actually accomplishing things." Yes," I said flatly. "I know exactly what it's like being invisible at family gatherings." He flinched. "Right, of course you do. But see, that's my point. You used that invisibility to build something amazing. I used my visibility to build nothing, less than nothing. Debt and disappointment dressed up as dreams." Chen cleared his throat. "Miss Blackwell, we should leave soon." Jake's desperation intensified. "Please, Marcia, I'll sign any contract, work any hours. I'll start at minimum wage. I need to be something other than your failure of a brother. You think a job fixes everything, that I can just slot you into my company and pretend the last 24 years didn't happen. No, I think a job lets me start fixing things. Therapy helps with the emotional stuff, but I need purpose. Real purpose, not another scheme or startup idea, he gestured wildly. I've been watching you succeed my whole life without seeing it. Maybe if I'm working for you, I'll finally learn what actual achievement looks like. And if you fail, if you show up late, do shoddy work, expect special treatment because you're the boss's brother. Then you fire me, document everything. Make me sign away any claim to wrongful termination. I don't want protection, I want opportunity. I looked at Chen, who shrugged. Family businesses are complicated, but sometimes redemption comes from unexpected places. This isn't redemption, I corrected. This would be probation. Extreme probation. Jake's face lit up with hope. I'll take it. Anything. Just, please. Behind him, through the windows, I could see his Tesla, the symbol of everything wrong with our family dynamic. What about your car? What about it? You can't keep it. If you want to work for me, really work, you sell the Tesla. Take the bus like I did. Use the money to pay for your own therapy and education. His face went through several expressions before landing on acceptance. Okay, just like that. Marcia, I bought that car with your money while you took the bus to graduation. Every time I look at it, I see my parents' favoritism and my own worthlessness. I'll sell it tomorrow. Today. You'll sell it today, before I leave for Japan. But the dealership is closed. CarMax is open until 9. I pulled out my phone, showing him the location. They'll give you cash value, probably 30% less than you paid this morning, but that's the price of poor decisions. Jake stared at the phone, then at his keys. You're serious. Dead serious. You want to work for me? Come and prove you can sacrifice something. I sacrificed sleep, social life, and sanity to build my company. You can sacrifice a car you didn't earn. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his Tesla key fob, the same one Mom had been waving around that morning, like a trophy. What about Mom and Dad? They'll go ballistic. That's your problem to solve. First test of your new life standing up to them. Jake looked at the key fob, then at me. You know what, you're right. It's just a car, an expensive, gorgeous, absolutely amazing car that I've dreamed about for years, but still, just a car. Having second thoughts. No, well, yes, but no, he squared his shoulders. I'll do it. Sell the car, start therapy, take the bus. All of it. Just promise me one thing. I'm not promising anything. Fair, but hear me out. When I prove myself, if I prove myself, will you consider me for real work, not charity, not family obligation? Real work based on merit. I thought about the boy who'd stolen my college fund, who'd made my graduation about himself, who'd been the golden child while I was invisible. Then I looked at the man in front of me, terrified and desperate, and maybe possibly sincere. On those 6 months, I said finally, therapy, education, and volunteer work. No contact with me except through the trust administrators. You document everything, grades, therapy, progress, volunteer hours. If you last 6 months, I'll review your application for an entry-level position, unpaid internship to start. Unpaid. His old instincts flared before he caught himself. No, right, of course. Prove myself first. And Jake, this is your only chance. Screw up, skip therapy, quit school, and we're done forever. No Christmas cards, no wedding invitations, no deathbed reconciliations. Done. He nodded rapidly. I understand. Thank you. I won't let you down. You've been letting me down for 24 years. Forgive me if I don't hold my breath. The words hit hard, but he absorbed them. I deserve that. I deserve worse, but I'm going to surprise you. The only surprise would be you following through. I turned to Chen. We should go. Wait, Jake called. What about the 43,000? Should I transfer it? I paused. The money that had been mine, stolen for his dreams, wasted on his failures. Keep it. Use it for therapy and school. Consider it an investment in becoming someone worth knowing. Marcia, but Jake, that's the last penny you'll ever see from me that you didn't earn. Spend it wisely. I walked away, leaving him standing in the lobby with his Tesla keys and life-changing decisions. Through the glass doors, I saw him staring at his car, perhaps seeing it for what it really was, a symbol of everything he needed to leave behind. Think he'll do it? Chen asked as we climbed into the waiting car. Sell the car, maybe. The rest? Unlikely. I settled into the leather seats, exhaustion hitting me. 24 years of enabling doesn't disappear because of one moment of clarity. But you're giving him a chance. I'm giving him rope. Whether he climbs with it or hangs himself is up to him. As we drove toward the airport, I got one last text. A photo from Jake Him at CarMax, signing papers, the Tesla visible in the background. The message read, Step 1, bus pass purchased. See you in 6 months. I deleted the message without responding. Actions mattered, not promises. But as the city blurred past the windows, I allowed myself a tiny spark of hope. Not for the brother who'd spent my college fund, but for the man who might emerge from his shadow. Time would tell if Jake could transform from the golden child into someone worth knowing. But that was his journey now. Mine led to Tokyo, to world-changing technology, to a future I'd built while taking buses in the dark. The overlooked daughter was done looking back, even for the brother who'd finally noticed her light. The law offices of Patterson Mills and Associates occupied the entire 40th floor of the Transamerica building. 3 days after graduation, I sat in a conference room that probably cost more to furnish than my parents' house, watching my lawyer, Linda Patterson, organize a stack of documents that would reshape my family's understanding of consequences. Your behavioral analysis data is fascinating, Linda said, adjusting her glasses. 2 years of documented interactions. Every family dinner you weren't invited, to every achievement they ignored, every dollar diverted from your education to your brother's ventures. It's like you were building a legal case without knowing it. I was building a diagnostic tool. The family stuff was just data exhaust. Oh, legally actionable data exhaust. She pulled up a screen showing transaction records. Your parents claimed you as a dependent on their taxes for all 4 years of college. They received education credits, dependent exemptions, and various deductions. Meanwhile, you have pay stubs showing you covered 98% of your expenses. Marcus Chen sat beside me, having delayed our Japan trip to ensure my legal protection was airtight. How much are we talking about in false claims? Approximately $68,000 in tax benefits they weren't entitled to. That's not including penalties and interest. Linda smiled grimly. The IRS takes a dim view of claiming dependents you don't actually support. My stomach clenched. I don't want them in jail. They won't go to jail if they cooperate, but they will face audits, fines, and potential fraud charges if they try to claim any part of your success. Linda opened another folder. Speaking of which, your mother has been busy. Would you like to hear what she told the Mercury News? I groaned. Do I have to? You should know what we're dealing with. Linda pulled up the article on her tablet. Local mother proud of daughter's success. We always knew she was special. The headline alone made me nauseous. Linda continued reading. Diane Blackwell speaks about supporting her daughter's journey to becoming tech's youngest billionaire. We sacrificed so much to give Marcia every opportunity. While other parents push their children into sports or parties, we encourage her dedication to science. She actually said that my voice came out strangled. They missed my science fairs because of Jake's football games. It gets better. She claims they funded your research by taking out a second mortgage. Linda's expression was deadly serious. We've already sent a cease and desist, but the damage is spreading. 3 more outlets have picked up the story. Chen leaned forward. This is why we need documentation, not for revenge, but for protection. Linda clicked to another screen showing social media posts. Your brother posted a farewell to his Tesla with the caption, "Selling my car to support my sister's company. Family first." The comments are illuminating. I watched the video of Jake at CarMax playing the devoted brother sacrificing for family. The same car bought with my college fund was now being spun as his noble gesture. The revisionist history is impressive, I muttered. Which brings us to the trust documents. Linda spread papers across the conference table. The Blackwell Family Redemption Trust, funded with $2 million. That's generous considering. It's not about the money, it's about proving change is possible. I scanned the terms I'd outlined. Therapy requirements, educational milestones, public acknowledgement of past behavior community service, focused on family dynamics. They get nothing unless they complete each stage. And if they refuse, then the money goes to the Overlooked Achievers Fund. Linda nodded approvingly. The accountability measures are thorough. Weekly therapy sessions, monthly progress reports, supervised family meetings after 6 months. They can't fake their way through this. What about Jake's employment request? I've drafted an ironclad internship agreement. He'll have no special privileges, no access to proprietary information, no claim to the company based on family relationship. One violation and he's terminated with prejudice. A knock interrupted us. Linda's assistant entered looking flustered. "Ms. Patterson, there's a Warren and Diane Blackwell in the lobby. They don't have an appointment, but insist on seeing their daughter." I tensed. "How did they find me?" "Your mother has been calling every law firm in the city," the assistant explained. "She told reception there was a family emergency." "The emergency being their tax fraud exposure," Chen suggested dryly. Linda stood. "I'll handle this. Maria, would you like to observe from the adjacent room one-way glass full audio? You can see how they react to legal reality without direct confrontation." I agreed, following her to a smaller conference room with a mirror wall. Chen joined me as Linda prepared to meet my parents. "You okay?" he asked. "I've been better, but I need to see this. Need to know if they're capable of understanding what they've done." Through the glass, we watched my parents enter. They looked haggard, aged a decade in 3 days. Mom clutched a designer purse like a shield while Dad wore his best suit, the one reserved for important bank meetings. Linda introduced herself with professional coolness. "Mr. and Mrs. Blackwell, I understand you're looking for your daughter." "Where is she?" Mom demanded. "We have a right to see her. We're her parents." "Actually, you have no rights regarding Ms. Blackwell. She's an adult who's chosen to communicate through legal channels." Linda sat down, gesturing for them to do the same. "I assume you've received our cease and desist regarding false media statements." Dad's face reddened. "Those weren't false. We supported Marcia." "By diverting her college fund to your son, by claiming her as a dependent while she worked 3 jobs, by missing her graduation to buy that same son a luxury car." Linda's voice remained calm, each fact landing like a precision and strike. Mom started crying. "We made mistakes, but she's our daughter. She can't just cut us off." She can, and she has pending your completion of therapy and accountability requirements." Linda slid the trust documents across the table. "However, she's also provided a path forward if you choose to take it." I watched Dad scan the documents, his banker's eye catching the important parts. His face went pale. $2 million, but there are so many conditions. Conditions designed to address 22 years of documented neglect and favoritism. Would you prefer to discuss the tax fraud charges instead? Tax fraud! Mom's tears stopped abruptly. What tax fraud? Linda pulled out the analysis. 4 years of false dependent claims, education credits you weren't entitled to. Your daughter has pay stubs, rent receipts, and bank records showing she supported herself while you claimed otherwise to the IRS. We didn't know, Dad started. You didn't know you weren't supporting your daughter. The one you told to take the bus to graduation because you needed the car for Jake's Tesla pickup. Linda's tone could have frozen fire. The IRS will find that defense unconvincing. Through the glass, I watched my parents' worldview crumble. They'd operated for so long in their bubble of justification that legal reality hit like ice water. "What do you want?" Dad asked, finally defeated. "Miss Blackwell wants nothing from you except acknowledgement and change. The trust provides resources for therapy, education, and growth, but only if you meet every requirement. Weekly therapy, monthly reports, public acknowledgement of your favoritism, no media statements without approval, no contact until you've shown genuine progress. And if we refuse," Mom's chin lifted defiantly, "then you face the IRS alone. Your daughter proceeds with her life without you, and the $2 million funds scholarships for other overlooked children. Your choice." Dad turned to Mom. "Diane, we have to—" "I will not grovel to my own daughter," Mom snapped. "She should be grateful we raised her." Linda's smile was sharp. "Grateful your daughter became a billionaire despite your neglect, not because of your support. She succeeded while you poured resources into your son's failures, and now you want gratitude." "Jake is not a failure." Mom stood shaking. "He's an entrepreneur." "Who lost $60,000 of your daughter's college fund on cryptocurrency, who spent this morning selling a Tesla he bought with her money, who asked her for a job after humiliating himself at her graduation." Linda also stood, matching Mom's energy. "Your son admitted his failures. Why can't you—" The silence stretched taut. Dad looked between his wife and the document's calculation clear on his face. The banker in him saw the numbers: $2 million in trust funds versus potential tax penalties and legal fees. "Diane," he said quietly, "we should sign." "Warren." "We claimed tax benefits we weren't entitled to. We gave Jake money that should have gone to Marcia. We missed her graduation for a car purchase." His shoulders slumped. "We failed her. The least we can do is try to make it right." Mom turned on him. "You're taking her side." "There are no sides. There's just the truth. And the truth is, we chose wrong. For 22 years, we chose wrong." Through the glass, I felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the possibility that one parent might be capable of change. Linda seized the moment. "Mr. Blackwell, if you're ready to begin the process, we can start with individual therapy sessions. The trust requires both parents to participate, but you can begin separately." "And Marcia," Dad asked, will she ever speak to us again?" "That depends entirely on your progress. She's provided a path back. Whether you take it is your choice." Dad picked up the pen, his hand trembling slightly. "Where do I sign?" "Warren, don't you dare!" Mom grabbed for the papers, but Linda smoothly moved them out of reach. "Mrs. Blackwell, I suggest you take time to consider. The offer stands for 30 days. After that, it expires, and any legal protections it provides expire with it." Dad signed where Linda indicated, then looked at his wife. "Diane, please. We've lost one child to our blindness. Don't make it both." But Mom was already heading for the door. "When Marcia comes crawling back, needing her family, don't expect me to forget this betrayal." She slammed out, leaving Dad looking older than his years. He turned to Linda. "She'll come around. She has to. The alternative is unbearable." Linda gathered the papers. "Your first therapy session is tomorrow at 9. Dr. Sarah Winters specializes in family dynamics and parental favoritism. Don't be late." Dad stood to leave, then paused. "Is she watching Marcia?" Linda's expression gave nothing away. "Your daughter is protected and supported. Focus on your own growth, Mr. Blackwell. That's all she asks." As he left, I pressed my hand against the glass. One parent willing to try, one still trapped in denial, and Jake supposedly selling cars and buying bus passes. My family was fracturing along lines of accountability. Chen touched my shoulder. "You okay?" "I don't know. Is this what winning feels like? Because it mostly feels hollow." "Justice often does, but hollow is better than continued exploitation." Linda returned looking satisfied. Your father will comply. Your mother will either follow or face consequences alone. The IRS notices go out in 30 days regardless. And Jake? Still radio silent since the CarMax photo, but he has 6 months to prove himself. That's more than most get. I stood suddenly exhausted. Can we go to Japan now? I need to think about something other than family dysfunction. The jet's ready when you are, but Marcia? Linda's expression softened. You did the right thing. Boundaries aren't betrayal no matter what your mother says. As we left the law office, I thought about the little girl who'd craved her parents' approval. She'd built an empire while they looked elsewhere. Now that empire would protect her from their belated interest. The overlooked daughter had lawyered up, and for the first time in 22 years, the family dynamics were shifting in her favor. By the time we landed in Tokyo, the story had gone viral. Bus ride billionaire was trending worldwide, and my phone had given up trying to count notifications. Chen handed me a tablet showing the media explosion while we waited for customs. BuzzFeed picked it up first, he explained. Then CNN, BBC, even the Wall Street Journal. Your graduation speech has 30 million views and climbing. I scrolled through headlines, each more sensational than the last. She took the bus while they bought him a Tesla, the ultimate family betrayal. Young billionaire exposes 22 years of parental favoritism. The daughter they ignored just changed medicine forever. This one's my favorite. Chen showed me a tech blog, From Coffee Shop to CEO, How Neglect Fueled Innovation. But for every positive story, there were complications. My parents' social media accounts were being flooded with comments. Someone had found Jake's LinkedIn, where he'd listed himself as CEO of multiple ventures, and the internet was having a field day with his actual track record. Linda's handling the legal side, Chen assured me, but you should see this. He pulled up a video that made my stomach drop. My mother standing outside their house talking to what looked like a local news crew. The cease and desist had clearly meant nothing to her. My daughter is confused, she told the reporter, tears streaming. We've always supported her dreams. This narrative about neglect is just not true. We have photos, videos, so many memories of encouraging her scientific interests. The reporter pressed, but you missed her graduation for a car purchase. A miscommunication. We were getting her a surprise gift. Jake's Tesla was supposed to be for the whole family to share. I laughed bitterly. A surprise gift. That's her story now. The video continued. Mom pulled out a photo album showing carefully curated pictures. There I was at age 10 with a science kit, the one Grandma had bought me. Another of me at a robotics competition, the one they dropped me off at and never attended. Each image presented without context, creating a false narrative of parental support. We need to respond, Chen said. Your silence is letting her control the story. But I was already distracted by another notification. Jake had posted on Instagram a photo of him on a city bus laptop open with the caption, Day 1 of earning my sister's respect. Enrolled in community college for computer science. The bus rides give me time to study. The comments were split between mockery and cautious support. But what caught my attention was a reply from someone named Sarah Chen, sat next to this guy on the 47 line. He helped an elderly woman with her groceries and tutored a kid in math during the ride. Maybe people can change. Your brother's playing this smart, Chen observed. Public accountability, documented progress. My phone rang. Linda Patterson. I answered on speaker. Your mother's interview is causing problems, she said without preamble. She's showing selective photos and emails. We need to counter with your documentation. Release it all, I decided. Every timestamp showing me alone in the lab. Every family event I wasn't invited to. Every achievement they missed. Let the data speak. Are you sure this will humiliate them publicly? I thought about Mom crying on camera, spinning lies about surprise gifts. They're humiliating themselves. I'm just providing context. 2 hours later, my team released a simple website, theoverlookeddaughter.com. It displayed a timeline of my life with achievements on one track and family activities on another. The visual was devastating. 4 years of science fairs, competitions, and awards lined up against Jake's games parties and failed business launches. Each entry timestamped, documented, irrefutable. The site crashed from traffic within minutes. When it came back up, someone had added a counter showing the 47 lives saved by my AI system updating in real time as hospitals reported new early detections. Next to it, a second counter, number of family members present at thesis defense 0. The internet response was swift and merciless. Overlooked, daughter started trending. People shared their own stories of family favoritism. Therapists wrote articles about golden child scapegoat dynamics. Parents posted about recognizing their own biases. But the part that went truly viral was a split-screen video someone created my parents arriving late to graduation, laughing about Jake's Tesla, contrasted with me accepting my diploma alone. The audio was my father saying the graduation thing, overlaid with the announcement of my $50 million deal. It was brutal in its simplicity. Chen showed me the stats. 60 million views in 6 hours. Your parents' house is surrounded by media. Jake's old high school classmates are giving interviews about how your parents treated you both. And Jake himself, still on the bus apparently. Someone spotted him at the community college actually attending orientation. He's not responding to media requests. A notification popped up, an email from Dad. Marcia, I've seen the website, the timeline, every missed moment laid out like evidence of our failure. Because that's what it is. Evidence of our complete and utter failure as parents. I attended my first therapy session today. Dr. Winters asked me to list your accomplishments. I couldn't get past good at computers. 22 years of your life, and I couldn't fill a single page about my own daughter. Your mother won't speak to me. She says I betrayed our family by signing those papers, but the only betrayal was spending 2 decades looking at the wrong child. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that at least one of us finally sees the truth. Dad. I stared at the email, emotions tangled like bad code. Chen read it over my shoulder. That's progress, he offered. It's words. Jake posted words too. Mom's spinning words on camera. I need to see actions. My phone rang again, this time Professor Hartley. Marcia, you need to see this. Channel 7 has a special report. Your high school teachers are being interviewed. I found the live stream. My AP chemistry teacher, Mr. Rodriguez, was speaking. Marcia Blackwell was the most brilliant student I've taught in 30 years. She'd stay after school to use the lab working on projects beyond graduate level. When I asked about parental permission slips for competitions, she'd forge them rather than admit they wouldn't sign. My throat tightened. I'd forgotten about the forged permission slips. The segment continued with my calculus teacher, the librarian who'd let me stay past closing, the janitor who'd found me asleep in the computer lab at dawn, each painting a picture of a child raising herself while her parents celebrated their son's mediocrity. Then came the interview that broke me. Ms. Kim, my freshman counselor, Marcia, came to me once crying. She'd won a state science championship and her parents didn't show up for the ceremony. She asked me, "What's wrong with me? Why don't they see me?" I've carried that question for 8 years. Now the whole world sees her, but I wonder if she still asks herself that question. I was crying before I realized it. Chen quietly handed me tissues while pulling up damage control plans. "We can stop this," he offered. "Pull back, let it die down." "No." I wiped my eyes. "Let it burn. Every overlooked child needs to see this. Needs to know they're not crazy, not wrong for expecting equal treatment. If my family breakdown helps one kid realize their worth isn't determined by parental attention, then it's worth it." The media storm raged on. Psychologists analyzed our family dynamics on talk shows. Parents magazine ran a special issue on recognizing favoritism. The Tesla dealership actually offered to buy Jake's car back at full price for the publicity, which he publicly declined, donating the difference to my scholarship fund instead. But the moment that truly went viral happened 3 days later. A TikTok user caught Jake on the bus tutoring a struggling student in basic math. When someone recognized him and started recording expecting drama, he just kept teaching. At the end, the student asked why he was helping. Jake's response caught on camera: "Because for 24 years I took help I didn't earn. Time to give some back." The video exploded. Bus Ride Brother competed with Overlooked Daughter for trending status. People debated whether redemption was possible, whether Jake deserved praise for basic decency, whether our family could heal. I watched it all from Tokyo, negotiating contracts that would save lives while my family navigated their very public reckoning. The overlooked daughter had become impossible to ignore, and the golden child was tarnishing in real time. But through it all, one counter kept climbing: lives saved by the Blackwell diagnostic system: 52, 53, 54. That number mattered more than any view count or trending hashtag. While my family faced their choices in public, I focused on the only metric that truly counted: making sure other daughters overlooked or otherwise would live to achieve their own dreams. 2 weeks after graduation, I stood before an audience of 800 at the Commonwealth Club in San Francisco, the same stage where tech titans announced world-changing products, where Nobel laureates debated the future, where my parents had once attended a talk by Jake's cryptocurrency idol, the one who'd inspired him to lose my college fund. The irony wasn't lost on me. Good evening. I began looking out at a sea of faces that included fellow overlooked achievers, tech leaders, educators, and media. 2 weeks ago, I took the bus to my graduation while my parents bought my brother a Tesla with my college fund. Today, I'm announcing something that turns that painful irony into purposeful action. The audience leaned forward. In the third row, Rosa Fitzgerald smiled encouragingly. She'd become my unofficial mentor, helping navigate the chaos of sudden wealth and public attention. The Overlooked Achievers Foundation will provide more than money. It will provide what many of us never had: recognition, support, and proof that someone sees our worth. I clicked to the first slide showing the foundation's structure. 50 full scholarships annually, but that's just the beginning. The slide detailed comprehensive support: tuition, housing, living expenses, mental health services, and something I desperately needed: a mentor who showed up. Each scholar will be paired with a successful professional who understands invisibility, who built excellence without applause, who knows that sometimes the greatest motivation comes not from family approval, but from spite transformed into purpose. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. They understood that reference. But there's a twist, I continued. Applicants must have a sibling who received disproportionate family resources. I'm not talking about normal differences in attention. I'm talking about documented patterns of favoritism that forced academic excellence to compete with athletic mediocrity that funded failure while ignoring achievement. I clicked to the next slide: application criteria. The room stirred as people recognized their own stories in the requirements. Submit your achievements alongside evidence of disparity. Show us your science fair awards next to your siblings' participation trophies that got prime wall space. Document the college visits you arranged alone while your parents drove your sibling to their third school after dropping out. Prove that you succeeded not because of family support, but despite its absence. A hand shot up from the audience. A young woman, maybe 19, stood trembling. What if our siblings applied too? What if they claimed they were overlooked? The question I'd been expecting. Every application requires documentation: tax records showing who received financial support, social media proving who got parental attention, school records indicating whose events were attended. Data doesn't lie even when families do. But more importantly, I added, this isn't about punishing golden children. It's about lifting up the ones who climb mountains in shadow. Your sibling can apply to thousands of other scholarships. This one is specifically for those who know what it's like to achieve greatness while invisible. Another hand. This time a father, his face flushed with what looked like shame. My daughter sent me your story, made me realize I've been doing exactly what your parents did. Is it too late to change? The room held its breath. Here was a parent publicly admitting failure, seeking redemption. It's never too late to see your overlooked child, I said carefully, but understand this recognition requires action. Apologies mean nothing without changed behavior. Start by asking your daughter about her achievements, without mentioning her sibling. Attend her events without comparing them to others. And most importantly, accept that she may not forgive you immediately. Trust once broken by favoritism takes time to rebuild. He nodded, sitting down heavily. I noticed him pull out his phone, likely texting his daughter. The foundation launches with $10 million in funding, I announced, but we're structured to grow. Every dollar earned from the Blackwell Diagnostic System's patient savings will be matched by corporate partners. The screen showed letters of support from major tech companies, medical institutions, and private donors. Companies that understood the value of overlooked talent. Our first scholarship recipient is here tonight, I said. Sarah Chen, would you stand? A young woman rose, tears streaming. Sarah's parents spent her college savings on her brother's third attempt at medical school. She worked overnight shifts at a grocery store while maintaining a 4.0 in bioengineering. Her thesis on affordable prosthetics has already gained NIH attention. Her parents didn't attend her presentation because her brother had a job interview. He didn't get the job. She got funding to change lives. The applause was thunderous. Sarah sobbed openly as people around her offered congratulations her family hadn't. But we're not done. I continued once the crowd settled. The foundation will also fund research into family favoritism. Why do parents consistently choose potential over achievement? What makes them pour resources into failure while ignoring success? How can we break these cycles? Dr. Patricia Williams joined me on stage. Our initial studies show fascinating patterns. Parents often favor children who reflect their own unfulfilled dreams while overlooking those who exceed their understanding. It's not always malicious. Sometimes brilliance is invisible simply because parents lack the framework to recognize it. Which brings me to our most controversial program, I said, bracing for reactions, the Family Reconciliation Initiative. The slide showed therapy resources, workshops, and support groups, not for the overlooked achievers, but for their families. If parents genuinely want to change, we'll help. Free therapy focused on recognizing bias. Workshops on supporting all children equally. Support groups for recovering golden children who realized their pedestal was actually a prison. A murmur ran through the crowd. This was unexpected. My brother sold his Tesla and enrolled in community college. My father started therapy and sent his first genuine email recognizing my achievements. I paused. My mother is still giving interviews blaming everyone but herself. Change is possible, but not guaranteed. Why help them? Someone called out. They didn't help you. Because, I said, finding Rosa's approving gaze, bitterness is heavy. I built my success carrying spite as fuel, but maintaining excellence requires letting go of what weighs us down. If helping families heal means fewer overlooked achievers suffer, then it's worth the investment. Besides, I added with a slight smile, the best revenge isn't cutting off family. It's becoming so successful they have to watch from afar knowing they could have been part of it if they just looked up from their favorite child. The audience responded with knowing laughter. These were people who understood that particular brand of satisfying pain. One final announcement, I said. Next month, we're hosting the first Overlooked Achievers Summit. 3 days of networking mentorship and proving that invisibility can be a superpower. Every scholar gets full access. Every family member who completes our reconciliation program can attend the final day. I clicked to the last slide, a photo from my graduation. 3 empty chairs in the family section while I stood alone on stage. Those empty chairs used to symbolize neglect. Now they represent space for chosen family, for mentors who show up, for fellow achievers who understand, for anyone who sees worth where others see only shadows. The Overlooked Achievers Foundation isn't about dwelling on past neglect. It's about transforming pain into power, invisibility, into innovation, and abandonment into achievement. We are the children who built excellence from absence. Now we'll ensure no brilliant mind goes unrecognized again. As I concluded, the audience erupted, standing ovation tears and hundreds of hands reaching for application forms. But what moved me most was a text that arrived during the applause. From Jake, watching your speech from the bus. Guy next to me asked why I was crying. Told him my sister just changed the world while I was buying a car. He said, at least I finally noticed. Progress. I didn't respond. Words were still just words, but as I looked out at the crowd of overlooked achievers finally being seen, I allowed myself to hope that maybe possibly some golden children could learn to appreciate the shadows they'd cast. The foundation would help those who'd been invisible. The reconciliation program would help those who'd done the overlooking. And somewhere between achievement and accountability, families might find their way back to each other. But first, 50 brilliant minds would get the support they'd always deserved. The overlooked daughter had become a beacon for the unseen. And that Tesla my parents bought, it had unknowingly funded a movement. 6 weeks after graduation, the letter arrived at my Tokyo apartment. Not an email, not a text, but an actual handwritten letter from my mother. The first handwritten anything I'd received from her since childhood birthday cards that always mentioned Jake's achievements. I almost threw it away unopened, but Chen, who'd become more advisor than CEO, suggested I read it with Dr. Martinez, the therapist I'd started seeing to process the public family explosion. I want you to read it out loud, Dr. Martinez said during our video session. Your voice, your pace. Take back control of the narrative. I broke the seal, expensive stationery crackling. Marcia, your father says I should start with an apology. The therapist I'm required to see, yes, I finally started, says I should begin with accountability, but I'm going to start with the truth. I don't know how to be your mother. For 22 years, I knew exactly how to be Jake's mother. Cheerleader, defender, enabler, the therapist's word, not mine. With you, I felt like I was failing before you could even talk. You reached milestones early, asked questions I couldn't answer, built things I didn't understand. By age 5, you'd surpassed my comprehension, and it terrified me. Jake was easier. His needs were simple, his failures understandable, his dreams small enough to fit in my hands. You dreamed of changing the world, while I could barely change a light bulb without your father's help. So I focused on what I could understand, a son who needed me, and ignored the daughter who didn't. Except you did need me. The therapy is showing me that. You needed recognition, support, presence. You needed a mother who could celebrate brilliance she didn't understand instead of resenting it. You needed what I gave freely to Jake. Unconditional belief in your worth. I've been rewatching your graduation speech 63 times now. Each time I see something new. The way you held yourself straighter when mentioning Rosa Fitzgerald, the stranger on a bus who gave you what I couldn't, the crack in your voice when describing late-night lab work, alone because we were at another of Jake's crisis interventions. The therapist makes me journal. Yesterday's prompt was, write about a time you celebrated Marcia. I stared at blank pages for 2 hours. Your father filled 3 notebooks in a week. We're separated. Not legally, just physically. He moved into Jake's old room, the one we kept as a shrine to his potential while you slept in a converted office. The irony isn't lost on either of us. He attends therapy religiously, reads books about narcissistic parenting, sends me research about golden child syndrome. He's trying to become the father you deserved. I'm trying too, though you have no reason to believe that. I've stopped the interviews. The cease and desist order made that choice for me. I've started volunteering at the local science museum, teaching kids basic programming, trying to understand what fascinated you at their age. One little girl reminds me of you, too smart for her own good, asking questions that make adults uncomfortable. I don't tell her to be more like her brother. Jake is different. He failed his first community college test and called crying. Not to me for comfort, but to his study group for help. He takes the bus everywhere, tutors kids for free, applies for internships he's not qualified for yet. He sent me a photo of his first honest C+, with more pride than any participation trophy ever brought. We don't talk about you much. The shame is too heavy, the regret too sharp. But we talk around you. How to recognize achievement support without enabling love, without favoritism. We're learning what we should have known all along. I know you don't owe me anything. Not forgiveness, not contact, not the chance to know the daughter I overlooked, but I'm writing this to tell you what I should have said every day for 22 years. I see you now, Marcia. Too late, too little, but I finally see you. The girl who built miracles while I planned birthday parties for mediocrity. The daughter who saved lives while I saved face. The woman who transformed neglect into purpose while I transformed potential into excuses. Your mother, if I still have the right to that title. I finished reading throat tight with emotions I couldn't name. Dr. Martinez waited, letting me process. That was unexpected, I finally managed. How so? The accountability. She actually admitted she didn't know how to parent me, that she chose Jake because he was easier. Is that enough? I considered the question. 6 weeks of therapy had taught me that enough was my decision alone. No, but it's a start. A real start, not the performance she was giving media. My phone buzzed. Linda Patterson texting about another legal matter, but what caught my attention was the attachment, a photo from the courthouse. My parents exiting after what looked like tax fraud hearings, but instead of the united front they'd always presented, they walked separately. Dad carried therapy workbooks. Mom held a certificate from the Science Museum volunteer program. They were trying, actually trying. I want to share something else, Dr. Martinez said. Your father sent this to my colleague who's treating him, with permission to share. She screen-shared a video. Dad, sitting in what looked like Jake's empty room reading from a notebook. Things I missed about Marcia, one state science fair, age 12. We went to Jake's football game instead. Published first paper age 16. I asked if it paid anything. Perfect SATs. I said, of course, instead of congratulations. Built AI prototype age 20. I called it playing with computers. Saved first life age 21. I didn't know until graduation. His voice broke on the last item. The video continued for 20 minutes. A catalog of overlooked achievements, each paired with what they'd chosen instead. Jake's participation trophies, failed businesses, mediocre milestones that somehow mattered more than excellence. He reads this list daily, Dr. Martinez explained. His therapist says it's become a meditation on failure. Good, I said, surprising myself with the vehemence. He should understand what he missed. Do you want them to suffer? I want them to understand. There's a difference. 2 days later, Jake sent an email with the subject line, not asking for anything. Marcia passed my first semester. 3.2 GPA. Not stellar, but honest. No shortcuts. No mom and dad fixing things. No excuses. Just work. I'm writing because someone should document the change happening at home. You deserve to know, even if you never respond. Dad reads academic papers now. Yours first, then related research. He joined a support group for parents of gifted children, specifically for parents who failed to support them. He cries every meeting. Mom is harder to read. She volunteers at the Science Museum, but still flinches when kids exceed her understanding. She's trying, but 24 years of preferences don't disappear in 6 weeks. Yesterday, she almost said, "Why can't you be more like," to a student caught herself and left to compose herself. They don't live as husband and wife anymore. More like roommates bonded by shared failure. Dad sleeps in my old room, surrounded by your achievements he printed from online. Mom redecorates, obsessively removing all traces of my shrines while adding your awards she found in boxes. The house feels like a memorial to mistakes. I'm not asking you to forgive them, or me. I'm just reporting that change is happening slow and painful and real. Your success didn't just transform medicine. It's forcing our entire family to confront who we really are. Mom asked me yesterday if I thought you'd ever come home. I told her home was wherever you felt valued, so probably not. She didn't argue. Your brother working on earning that title. I shared both letters with Chen over dinner. He read thoughtfully while I pushed sushi around my plate. They're actually changing, he observed. That's rare. Is it enough? What does enough look like to you? I thought about it. What would satisfaction require public acknowledgement? Done. Financial accountability? In progress. Genuine recognition of their failures? Emerging. Jake's transformation? Seemingly real. I don't know if enough exists, I admitted. 22 years of invisibility can't be erased by 6 weeks of therapy. But maybe it's not about erasing. Maybe it's about building something new. The foundation helps kids like me. The reconciliation program helps families like mine. If they complete the program, if they really change, you'll consider contact. I'll consider considering it. That night, I drafted a response. Not to my mother's letter or Jake's email, but to their therapists through the foundation program. Continue treatment. Document progress. In 6 months, if benchmarks are met, I'll consider 1 family session. Virtual only, moderated by professionals. This isn't forgiveness or acceptance. It's acknowledgement that change might be possible. They wanted to be seen as good parents. Now they need to become them. The daughter they overlooked is watching. This time, I'll be the one deciding if their efforts are enough. Marcia Blackwell. The ball was in their court now. They could continue the hard work of transformation or revert to comfortable patterns. Either way, I'd be in Tokyo building the future while they reconstructed the past. The overlooked daughter had set the terms. Now the Golden family had to prove they could meet them. 6 months later, almost to the day from graduation, Jake stood in the lobby of my San Francisco office. I watched him on security cameras from the executive conference room, Chen and Dr. Martinez flanking me for support. He looked different. The designer clothes had been replaced with clean but basic jeans and a community college sweatshirt. The perfectly styled hair was simply combed, but the biggest change was in his posture. The arrogant swagger had given way to something quieter, more grounded. He's been standing there for 30 minutes. Security reported. Says he has an appointment but won't push if you refuse to see him. I studied the monitor. Jake held a manila folder and what looked like a worn notebook. Every few minutes he checked his phone, then put it away without engaging. The old Jake would have been live streaming this moment, spinning it for sympathy. What do you think? I asked Dr. Martinez. He's met every benchmark. Therapy twice a week without missing a session. 3.4 GPA last semester, 200 hours of volunteer tutoring, part-time job at a grocery store, no social media presence except education-related posts. The grocery store is where Sarah Chen works, Chen added, pulling up Jake's employment record. Night shifts. He specifically requested the worst hours, saying he needed to understand what you went through. I zoomed in on his face. Dark circles under his eyes suggested those night shifts were taking their toll. Good. He should understand exhaustion earned through honest work. Bring him up, I decided. Conference room 3. I want barriers between us. 5 minutes later, Jake entered the smaller meeting room. Up close, the changes were more pronounced. His hands showed calluses from stocking shelves. His expensive watch had been replaced with a basic digital model. When he sat, he waited for permission before placing his folder on the table. Marcia, he began, then stopped. Thank you for seeing me. I know this is more than I deserve. You have 10 minutes, I said coolly, starting now. He nodded, opening the folder without flourish. Transcripts from 2 semesters. B+ average but improving. Letters from professors confirming attendance and participation. Pay stubs from every shift worked. Therapy session summaries approved for sharing. I scanned the documents. Everything meticulously organized, professionally presented. Nothing like the half-assed business plans he used to wave around. I also brought this, he said, sliding the notebook across. Every tutoring session logged, kids' names redacted for privacy, but their progress is documented. 43 students helped, 12 improved full letter grades. Why these kids specifically? I asked. Overlooked siblings, he admitted. Kids whose brothers or sisters get all the attention for sports or popularity while they struggle academically alone. I found them through your foundation's outreach program. That caught my attention. You're using my foundation to find students. With permission from the local coordinator, she thought it was appropriate. The golden child learning to see the overlooked ones. His voice carried no self-pity, just acknowledgement. One kid, Marcus, reminds me of you. Brilliant but invisible to his parents. I've been helping him with applications for your scholarship. Does he know who you are? Just Jake the tutor who takes the bus and understands feeling worthless despite privilege. He paused. I don't use our last name. Haven't earned the right to be associated with what you've built. Chen passed me a tablet showing surveillance footage from the past months. Jake on buses at dawn, Jake stocking shelves at 2 a.m., Jake tutoring kids at the library patient, and focused in ways I'd never seen. The golden boy had tarnished himself with honest work. Show her the other thing, Dr. Martinez prompted gently. Jake hesitated, then pulled out his phone. I kept one thing from before. Not public, just for me. He showed me a photo album labeled Sister's Success. Every article about my AI system, every life saved, screenshots of medical professionals praising the technology, photos of the foundation's first scholars. He'd been documenting my achievements the way our parents never had. I read about each life saved, he said quietly. Patricia Williams, 43, mother of 3, caught pancreatic cancer at stage 1. Roberto Martinez, grandfather of 7, blood clot prevented. Sarah Kim, 28, arterial weakness detected before rupture. Real people alive because my sister worked alone while I played video games in the next room. His voice cracked on the last sentence, the golden child finally understanding the weight of what had been overlooked. What do you want, Jake? I asked directly. To earn a chance. Not forgiveness, not instant acceptance. Just the opportunity to prove I can be more than your family's biggest mistake. He met my eyes fully. I want to work for your foundation, not the AI company. I'm not qualified for that. But the foundation helping overlooked kids. I want to spend my life making sure no brilliant sibling goes unseen again. And if I say no, then I continue what I'm doing. Tutoring, working, learning, building a life that doesn't depend on unearned privilege. But I had to ask, had to show you that at least one family member truly changed. I looked at Chen, who nodded slightly. Dr. Martinez maintained therapeutic neutrality, but I caught approval in her expression. There's an opening, I said slowly, in the Foundation's peer mentorship program. Former golden children who've recognized their privilege working with overlooked siblings. The pay is minimal. The hours are long. The work is emotionally difficult. Jake's eyes widened with hope he tried to contain. I'll take it. I'm not finished. You report to Sarah Chen, the woman whose parents spent her college money on her brother's medical school. She has full authority to fire you for any reason. You'll start with janitorial duties at our tutoring centers. Night shifts like you requested. If you last 3 months, you can begin supervised mentoring. I understand. And Jake, this isn't a path to my forgiveness. This is you earning your own redemption. I may never see you as a brother again. Can you live with that? He was quiet for a long moment, processing the reality that some bridges once burned could never fully rebuild. I spent 24 years as your brother while acting like an only child, he finally said. If I spend the next 24 helping kids like you, while you see me as a stranger, that's still more than I deserve. It was the most mature thing I'd ever heard him say. Report to Sarah Monday morning. She'll handle your onboarding. We're done here. Jake stood carefully gathering his documents. At the door, he paused. Marcia, Mom and Dad, they're different too. Really different. Dad especially. I'm not asking you to care, just maybe one day you could see for yourself. Wait, 6 years, I said. It took you 6 months to show real change because you're young, adaptable, and had less to unlearn. Give them 6 years of consistent growth, then we'll discuss one video call. His face fell slightly at the timeline, but he nodded. I'll tell them. Thank you for seeing me today. After he left, I sat in the empty conference room processing. The brother who'd stolen my college fund and commandeered my graduation was gone. In his place stood someone humbler, harder working, seemingly genuine in transformation. How do you feel? Dr. Martinez asked. Conflicted, skeptical, but also curious. If Jake can change this dramatically, what could happen with enough time and accountability? Only one way to find out, Chen offered. Let him prove it through action. That night, I received a text from Sarah Chen. Your brother just called to thank me for the opportunity. Spent 20 minutes asking about my experience as an overlooked sibling taking notes. I've never had a job applicant more prepared to understand their position. Still want me to be hard on him. Harder than you'd be on anyone else, I responded. He needs to earn every inch of progress. Understood. By the way, 63 lives saved as of tonight. Whatever else your family did wrong, their neglect created something beautiful. I looked out at the San Francisco skyline thinking about transformation. Jake scrubbing floors at night while studying by day. Dad reading academic papers he'd once dismissed. Mom teaching programming she'd never bothered to understand. The Golden family was tarnishing into something more real, more valuable. But I was done watching their progress. That was their journey now. Mine led forward to more innovations, more overlooked achievers lifted up more lives, saved by technology born from neglect. The brother I'd never had was trying to become the man he should have been. Whether that would be enough remained to be seen. But for the first time in 24 years, Jake Blackwell was living a story that wasn't stolen from someone else. That at least was a beginning.